Live NFL trivia every Wednesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge for a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. Has this ever happened to you? You suggest something to someone as a complete joke. Like, wouldn't it be funny if you did this? Or wouldn't it be funny if you said this? You're completely laughing about it because it was a pretty funny comment. However, the person on the other side isn't laughing. Not because they don't think it's a bad joke, but because they either think that you're serious, or they think that it's a legitimately good idea. Now usually, for things like this, it's inconsequential stuff. It's not done for decisions where hundreds of thousands of dollars are at stake, and where a ton is on the line. So with all that being said, what if I suggested that this is actually how a college football team once conducted business? This is Wyoming head coach Vic Koenning. And in the year 2000, the very first game that Koenning coached with the Cowboys was scheduled completely as a joke, where the athletic director suggested it completely kidding, but Koenning thought he was being completely serious and that this was a legitimate possibility. And the end result went about as well as you'd expect, not just for this game, but for Koenning's entire tenure with the team, as this interaction was a pretty good omen with what was to come. This is the story behind one of the strangest scheduling incidents in Wyoming history. Before I talk about the incident in question, we need some context to understand what the original plan for Wyoming was supposed to be during the 2000 season, as well as what caused this plan to change in the first place. And to start off, we actually have to travel well outside of the state, going about 1,500 miles southeast to Auburn. In 1999, there was a rather infamous and highly publicized scheduling controversy involving the Tigers. I'm not going to dive too much into the weeds of this particular controversy, but originally, the plan in 1999 was to kick off the season against Florida State, in what was going to be a highly anticipated game between the Seminoles, led by head coach Bobby Bowden, and the Tigers, led by head coach Terry Bowden, who was Bobby's son. However, after Terry resigned midway through the 1998 season following a 1-5 start, Auburn was looking for a way to back out of the game against FSU. Eventually, Auburn spent $500,000 to get out of the game, with their athletic director saying, "If we played the game as scheduled, the controversy surrounding the game and the turmoil of last season would be rehashed again and again over the next 8 months. The controversy would become bigger than the game, and that would be unfair to the players and coaches on both sides." And I bring that up because in 2000, Auburn was having similar troubles with their opening matchup of the season and determining who to play. In 2000, Auburn was set to open their season against Texas Tech. However, that game was scheduled while Spike Dykes was the head coach with the Red Raiders. Dykes was no longer with the program after the 1999 season, as after being with the team on a full-time basis since 1987, Texas Tech would have a new head coach to kick off the new millennia. And when Mike Leach replaced Dykes to become the new head coach, he wanted nothing to do with this game. He didn't want to open the season on the road, and did not want to play a tough non-conference schedule, as evidenced by the fact that when all was said and done, Tech's non-conference schedule in 2000 consisted of 4 home games against New Mexico, Utah State, North Texas, and Louisiana Lafayette. Real challenging slate you got there. Auburn's athletic director, David Housel, said on the move, "Texas Tech contacted us and asked to be let out of the contract. Things like this are not uncommon, so we're willing to work with them to help them solve their problem." I love the second part of that statement, especially after what Auburn did last year with Florida State. Because yeah, they would look like giant hypocrites if they didn't help him out. And head coach Tommy Tuberville was searching frantically to find a new opponent to kick the season off, saying if anything is going to happen, it will happen in the next 3 or 4 days. However, there was a stipulation that the opponent would be comparable, coming out of either the Big 12 or the WAC. Those seem to be the only 2 conferences in conversation for this opener. Keep that in mind when you realize what's about to happen. Wyoming fans were excited to kick off the 2000 season for 2 reasons. Number 1, they were bringing back their iconic rivalry matchup against Utah State. The 2 teams played each other practically every single year from the start of the 1910s until the 1970s, when they were both members of the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference and the Mountain States Conference. However, the last time these 2 teams met was back in 1978. After that, since the 2 teams were no longer in the same conference, with Wyoming being in the WAC and Utah State being in the Pacific Coast Athletic Association, they never really got the opportunity to play each other. For more than 20 years, the rivalry sat dormant. However, to kick off the 2000 season, the 2 schools were going to play each other. And number 2, they had a brand new head coach. After 3 highly successful seasons at Wyoming, Dana Dimel left the program to join Houston, and was replaced by this man right here. This is Vic Koenning, and he seemed like the logical fit for the program. He was the team's defensive coordinator for all 3 seasons that Dimmel was there, and Wyoming had a very good defense under his watch. In 1996, the team ranked 51st out of 111 teams in points per game allowed. In 1997, which was Koning's first season, they ranked 15th, allowing a mere 17.5 points per game, and finishing with the second best defense in the WAC, only behind Colorado State. In 1998, their defense was once again second in the WAC, and in 2 games against ranked opponents, coming against Georgia and Air Force, they allowed just 26 points. Wyoming was even ranked inside the top 25 at one point late in that season on the strength of their defense. Sure, Koning had never been a head coach before, but it made complete sense to promote him once Dimmel left, especially since Wyoming hadn't had top 25 defense in the country since 1969, more than 3 decades ago, and under Koning, they did it twice in 3 years. And again, for Koning's first game, the Cowboys were set to take on Utah State for the first time in over 2 decades. That game was set in stone for the opening weekend of the season on the first Saturday in September. At no point was there even a discussion that they were thinking about canceling the game. It was going to happen, no doubt about it. At least, it was going to happen until one joke made by Wyoming Athletic Director Lee Moon went a little too far and completely changed how Wyoming was going to kick off the new millennium. Remember that at this point, Wyoming had an opponent set for the opening week of the season, and Auburn did not. At some point after Koning got hired, he went into Moon's office and the 2 men were talking business. Somehow, during this conversation, the schedule came up, probably in terms of talking about their game against Utah State. And during this conversation and the rivalry between Wyoming and Utah State that was being renewed, Moon said to Koning, "Well, we can play Auburn if you want to." Now, Moon was clearly joking when he said this. He was not even the slightest bit serious, and said it as a joke because of how much difficulty Auburn has had in the past few years scheduling their openers. Plus, remember that Tuberville said that Auburn was looking for a comparable opponent to Texas Tech, either coming out of the Big 12 or the WAC. Obviously, Wyoming is in no way a comparable opponent, nor do they even belong to either of those conferences, as they were a part of the Mountain West. And if that wasn't enough to suggest it, Wyoming already had a Power 6 opponent on their schedule as one of their guarantee games, as after the Utah State game, they were going to travel down to Texas to take on the Aggies of Texas A&M. And if that wasn't enough to suggest it, Wyoming was scheduled to play more Mountain West games on the road this year than at home, and the Utah State non-conference game to kick off the season was at home. If Wyoming backed out of that for Auburn, they'd be playing more road games than home games, which can take a toll on the players. It would have also been the first time since 1978, more than 20 years ago, that Wyoming played only 5 home games in a season, so doing this would have resulted in a trimmed home slate. This was one of those jokes in the same way that fans saying "We want Bama" is a joke. But Koning took Moon's comment completely seriously. Now that the idea was implanted in his mind, he was running full speed ahead, and basically told Moon that playing Auburn sounded great, and that he should make it happen. I think Moon was taken aback by those comments, because he was clearly joking, and now the joke went too far and he had to make some phone calls to try and get out of the Utah State deal and pay them money, while at the same time trying to convince Auburn that they should play them and that they're comparable to Texas Tech, even though they fit none of the criteria that Tuberville was looking for in an opponent. Moon now had a problem on his hands, but to his credit, he made it work, because Wyoming wound up playing Auburn to kick off the 2000 season. What started off as a joke and a complete throwaway statement to sound funny and lighten the mood became reality. And Koning was thrilled about this, saying, "I don't think we're going to go to a bowl game with 6 wins anyway, so we've got to go down there and take this as an opportunity. If you're going to reach for the stars, then you've got to stretch, so we're going to stretch." Koning even admitted that this was a complete joke, saying that the ADs said it in jest, but his response to the AD's remark was, "Shoot, I think that'd be great. I'm kind of nervous about Utah State anyway." And another report even confirmed that Moon was completely joking when he made that comment, but Koning took it seriously, because in his eyes, we went from a no-win situation against Utah State to a no-lose situation. The monkey should be on Auburn's back. They're going to feel all the pressure in the world on their shoulders, and our guys should only feel the pressure we put on them and the pressure they put on themselves. This whole situation just feels like something out of Ted Lasso. Couldn't you just see a scenario where someone jokingly suggests to Ted that AFC Richmond in the second tier should play FC Barcelona, and Ted wants to get it done? Well, that's literally what happened with Wyoming in 2000. They scheduled a game off of a joke that went way too far. And as you can probably guess, yeah, Wyoming did not exactly fare well during this game. On Thursday, August 31st, 2000, in front of a national television audience, Wyoming was playing under the lights at Auburn to kick off a brand new season and kick off a brand new era in Cowboy football. Could Wyoming pull off the miracle of all miracles by going into Jordan-Hare and not only getting the guaranteed game money, but getting the shocking victory? Absolutely not. No way. Auburn held the lead the entire game, jumping out to an early 14-0 lead in the first quarter and holding on to win the game 35-21, covering the spread in the process. Auburn had double Wyoming's total yardage, picking up 443 yards compared to just 221 for the Cowboys. And when you look at the numbers on the ground, it was a mismatch of epic proportions. Auburn finished the day with 177 rushing yards, with future Pro Bowl running back Rudy Johnson gaining 174 yards on over 6.4 yards per carry and scoring 3 touchdowns. Wyoming finished the day with just 29 yards on 27 carries, averaging 1.07 yards per run. For perspective on how bad that average is, if Wyoming had 9 downs to get a first down instead of 4, and all they did was run the ball, based on that average, they still would not pick up a first down. It was that bad. And when you combine that with the fact that Wyoming only converted 20% of their third down conversions, it's no surprise that the Cowboys lost this one and couldn't pull off the upset. And this whole incident and chaotic mess were a pretty good indicator for how Vic Koenning's tenure with the Cowboys would go. Because man, it was ugly with a capital U. Many call the Vic Koenning years in Wyoming the darkest period in program history, and it's not too hard to see why. Wyoming went 1-10 in his first year, which was not only the team's first losing record since 1992, but was the fewest wins that Wyoming had in a season since 1970, when they went 1-9. Their 10 losses was the most losses they accumulated in a season in program history, and that's a record in futility that still holds up today. Wyoming followed it up in 2001 with a 2-9 record, and followed that up in 2002 with a 2-10 record, at which point Koenning was let go. In his 3 seasons with the Cowboys, Koenning went 5-29, winning 14.7% of his games, and he went 3-29 against schools in Division 1A, winning only 9.3% of his games. Since World War II, Koenning has what is, quite easily, the worst winning percentage of any coach in school history. I guess this whole incident is a good lesson to athletic directors everywhere. Don't ever suggest to a coach the possibility that they can play a specific team if you don't actually mean it. Don't joke about and plant even the tiniest seed in their mind that something like this is possible. It's just going to lead to an insanely bizarre and insanely chaotic situation like the one that happened with Wyoming in 2000 that at the end of the day turned out to be a pretty good indicator of how that tenure was going to go. Think of all the hard work, the planning, the preparation, and the thought process that goes into deciding how you want your non-conference schedule to look. Because in 2000, all of that was undone by just one silly offhand comment. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. So you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.